What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics. Thanks so much for being with me, guys. You know the drill. LiveCortex.com specials on product. Number one, the Cortex stack. Look, it's just a stack to take for everything. It's a stack if you want verbal fluency, mental energy, the will to do work. 30% off. Coupon code is 30 right now. LiveCortex.com. A stack for entrepreneurs, a stack for productive people. Better deals. The Cortex double stack. That is 2 bottles of Cortex, but they are $24 each. Listen, if you are new to nootropics, meaning brand new, fresh out of the gate, like you really don't know a whole lot, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and you kind of want a good, solid baseline, you got to watch the video course, Nootropics Ground Zero. That is what I created it for. It's about an hour and 10 minutes or so of showing you everything. Get it at livecortex.com. If you are in nootropics for a couple years, but really need to ascend to a higher level where you get better results, look, as you go along the path of taking nootropics, you get better, you get smarter, you make more distinctions. We created a course that takes you to the 6-year mark. It's called the Nootropics Masterclass, and you can get that at livecortex.com. Last couple things. Listen, if you're a business person and you're serious about productivity and you're having a mental energy and brain performance deficit, you need to get on board with one of the consulting packages, either the 1 month, the 3.5 month, the 6 month intensive. These are hands-on, results-driven, neurohacking consulting packages where you work with me pretty much every day to achieve a variety of goals around general energy and functionality, but specifically fully optimizing your brain to the point where your productivity goes through the roof and you actually function awesome throughout the day. The 3.5 month and the 6 month, better yet, also apply to PSSD. If there's any question about what applies to you, please email me, Ryan at livecortex.com. So a question came through via email that I want to talk about. Figured it'd be a great topic for the channel about what would I do if I was new to nootropics? How would I start knowing what I know now? And that's a really good question. So, because I had to think about it for a sec. What exactly would I do? Like, I kind of got overwhelming because there's all this stuff that I've learned even in the last 2 years. I still keep learning about it pretty much every day. So, like, it's like, do I factor all that in? Like, this is going on 13 years. What the hell would I do? and I guess I do have an answer. So I thought about it, and I want to kind of just break things down for you folks. So first, I would buy pretty much all of the classical nootropics that we talk about. Every single one of the Racetams with the exception of Nephiracetam. I would buy like generic modafinil. I'd get like a Mode Alert or Mode Vigil 200. I would buy Alcar. I'd buy Teocrine. I would buy Dynamine. I'd buy phenylalanine, L-tyrosine. I'd buy Noopept. I'd buy, of course, Calamus. I would buy centrophenoxine, I'd buy DMA, I'd buy powders of all these things. What I would do next, I want to spare you 40 minutes of time, but I want to make this as simple as possible while still giving you the details, is I would experiment with every nootropic compound that does not require a cofactor, which is pretty much every compound with the exception of Racetams, because they accelerate the brain's acetylcholine usage, so you usually need to supply that with a choline source supplement. Okay, so I would try everything on its own to understand what it does for me, with the goal of finding the doses that work well for my brain, sort of the maximum allowable milligram quantity of that compound that gives me the best results, to the point that I get side effects, right? Just above that, I get side effects. Below that, I do not perform as well. Then I would start looking into bringing in synergistic additional components to the stack, right? So like having sampled Teocrine and found the right dose, recorded that, and set it aside like in a booklet or some sort of online document where I know which dose works. I would ask the question like, what would stack well with Teocrine, but better yet, and more specifically, what else do I need to do in addition to what Teocrine does? Teocrine just kind of gives me mental energy, and it's like very clean mental energy to just like attack work and do stuff, but doesn't necessarily improve my memory, and it doesn't necessarily improve my verbal fluency, right? So I would want to bring in compounds that improve my memory and improve my verbal fluency. I might try uridine monophosphate, because in my individual experiment, I came to understand that uridine monophosphate bumps up my verbal fluency, right? So I might add uridine in a modest dose, really whatever dose I had figured out. I mean, for me these days, it's like 75 milligrams. I just don't need a lot of that stuff. Been taking it for years. And I'd stack it on top of Teocrine. By the way, if you don't require choline with uridine, and some people do because it just seems to synergize and work better based on what it's doing, Teocrine uridine is a great stack. Then I would ask the question, this is where it gets complex. I'm not even sure I'm doing you guys justice, but I hope I am. Well, what could I do to compound the effects? Okay, teocrine's a mental energy-inducing compound. So what other compounds out there are mental energy-inducing? Can I stack them? I would first try Alcar. I would take Alcar because that's the primary benefit you're getting from Alcar is just brain energy. And that's the primary target of taking it. So I'd stack Alcar with teocrine. Say my dose is 100 milligrams of teocrine. Then I bring an Alcar at like 300 and see where I'm at, record the results. I would work up in both of those ingredient quantities to find a maximum allowable dose, milligram quantity-wise, where it gives me the maximum performance that I need, but it does not give me side effects. And I would experiment on taking more than I should so that I can see exactly what that level is. I mean, that's part of nootropics experimentation. It's not fun sometimes being like over-energized. It's like, but it's part of it. You have to learn over the years. But this is assuming I'm brand new and I started. In addition to that, I mean, there's just so much. Dynamine is a very powerful compound. It's almost like teocrine on steroids, which is a funny analogy for nootropics because they're not steroids. And then I would probably bring dynamine in, modest dose, 50 milligrams to start, with the stack of teocrine and Alcar that I had figured out works. See if I can make that a separate stack. Recording everything along the way is critically important because it offers you so many options. I could, on a day that I know I need mental energy, just take the teocrine Alcar stack. But then if I figured out that teocrine, Alcar, and dynamine works really well in certain formulations, certain milligram quantities, I can then take that stack on a different day, understanding exactly what it does for me. And I want you guys to critically get that point. There's a lot of experimentation that you have to do to really, really nail down lots and lots and lots of stacks. At that point, I would do the same thing with everything else that I have. I'd take tyrosine individually, find the maximum allowable dose. I try to add on to that and see what works with it. If I want to add memory to it, I try bringing Racetams in with it and see if I can find the right Racetam, probably oxyracetam if I remember my notes with phenylalanine for me personally. And then the choline source that works for me. I try to find the right choline source. It's CDP choline at 70 milligrams. I know these things. These are in my book. And then I would move on, set that stack aside. Know that stack works for specific things. I've got as detailed in my books as this stack here helps me to write blogs, like write an article or something. This stack here helps me to go through QuickBooks and manage the business's financial data. This stack here allows me to really, really quickly, but really, really detailed, write courses. I've taken certain nootropic stacks for writing the video courses that we have at livecortex.com. This is all the result of me doing this. And talked about Racetams yet. For people, to put it simply with Racetams, you'd want to start with, I look at Racetams in order from kind of when they came out. And in my brain, I literally see a list. It's Paracetam, Aniracetam, Oxyracetam, Phenylparacetam, Coliracetam, Fasiracetam, Pramiracetam. I would start with Paracetam, 2 grams, modest dose. I bring in either alpha GPC or CDP choline because, as you're seeing, the goal is to find out which ones are better and which, in this case, choline sources with Paracetam allow you to do what things, right? Like any even hardcore cerebral work that I need a little bit of motivation for, I would use Paracetam. My dose at this point is 3 grams with 75 milligrams CDP choline. I just know that dose worked well for me for a lot of consistent brain work that I'm sitting down to do work on, where I need to be somewhat motivated. And I would just run through that same process. But here's where it gets super complex. This is where you guys have a lot of work to do if you're brand new. Or you can just get Nootropics Ground Zero, Nootropics Masterclass, and it'll teach you a lot of this. Then what can you add to it, right? I have in my day and in my book of experiments taken Paracetam at my dose with CDP choline at my dose, and then added 50 milligrams modafinil. It's like, holy shit, now I have this whole other element to the brain function dynamic in this stack. Now I can sit down and work for 7 hours straight and not want to get up to pee. It's just so many experiments. But if you're not getting the point so far, I want to make it clear. First, you have to try everything individually, see how you respond. Write it all down. Find your maximum allowable dose. Write that down. Know what it is. Understand what tasks you're better at based on the brain performance you have from those individual compounds. Then begin to look at which compounds are alike are like those compounds, like in the example of Alcar, and then bringing in teacrine, and then bringing in dynamine, because they're all energy-inducing compounds. And then you try to work through that same measured progress of logging everything and seeing what stacks well with those individual compounds. You just keep writing it. By the end of this, right, and I don't even know if there's an end, because I'm still experimenting to this day with new compounds and new formulations. But a lot of it is pretty much jotted down, and I know it. And now it's just a book of reference. Like, I go in the book, I know what I want to do. I find the stack that I've proven by taking 3 days in a row consistently, and it did the same thing, no more than that, does what I needed to do, and then I just take that stack for the day. But there's still work to do, right? There's still experimentation I'm doing. I've been recruited to solve all kinds of problems, so I'm experimenting at every single level right now, still daily, with nootropics and research chemicals. But your job, if you're new, is to first understand you have a massive undertaking in front of you. I don't want to scare people that are brand new to nootropics, but you got to know there's a massive undertaking ahead of you. And if you're going to be taking them for years, which I hope you are, because they're like the most rad thing in the world, besides like dogs, is, look, I mean, you're going to be doing this sort of experimentation. If you don't know what does what in what doses and what that applies to task-wise, you're sort of pissing in the wind, like you're shooting in the dark. You don't quite know, and you're not going to get the best results. That's sort of the God course level nootropics logic that's like critical for people to get, but anyone can do that now. That is how I would start. I'd run through everything. I'd figure out what works for what. I'd write down all the doses. I'd start stacking things together. I'd start figuring out, are there certain times where I just need way more brain energy because of my to-do list than other times? And what kind of attack doses with multiple compounds that are working together in the maximal allowable doses can I take? Because I've got stacks for that too. Like modafinil, oxiracetam, pramiracetam, CDP-choline, luteolin, tyrosine, and dynamine. That's one of my stacks, right? And some fish oil in particular formulations. Then figure out the attack doses. Figure out those really, really complex stacks that are put together well in the maximal allowable doses that allow you to work for 12 hours straight without thinking about it. Lastly, I would say, so the whole point, right, of starting new and executing that strategy is to establish a bunch of different formulations that you just know work well for you for specific tasks. But then, as I got more advanced in nootropics, like I started to understand there were downstream things that some of the compounds that I was taking that were happening that I didn't want to happen. And usually that had to do with downregulation of receptor sites or modifications of receptor sites. I guess throughout, just spent a lot of time trying to understand, well, what happens when you force the release of a neurotransmitter too consistently? First of all, how many receptor sites are there for that neurotransmitter? Where are they in the brain? And what do they control? Like, there's crazy things once you start to get downstream into mechanisms that you understand, like the 5-HT series of receptors. Like, there's so many of them, and there's different subtypes of them. And how some of them control, like, erectile function. Like, it's just insane. I'd go down that route of exactly understanding which receptor sites control what. And I would develop over time, like I have, this 50,000-foot view understanding of everything that's going on. Now, I'm not asking you to get to that point. I'm not even suggesting it. It's an overload of your brain sometimes. But you do want to understand what nootropics are doing downstream. And I would do a lot of the research on every single receptor site for each neurotransmitter and what in the physiological response they control. Because receptor sites control, I'd be lying if I said everything, but a lot of things. And that's something to think about. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It's really just a strategy of identifying what works for you in a very simple capacity and then trying to layer on top of it to find out synergistic additional components to each of those baseline stacks that you'd figured out, and then really being able to pair those with certain brain states based on productivity. I am better at writing articles when I'm on this stack, right? I am better at sifting through data. I'm better at reading scientific papers when I take this stack, focusing on that, doing the experimentation, keeping everything logged. That is how I would approach being branded nootropics and starting again, considering what I know now. Hope that's not been too complex. This could have been an hour, but I tried to simplify it for you folks. Please comment in the comment section if you have any questions. Thank you so much for being with me. Remember, guys, Cortex Stack, 30% off livecortex.com. It's just a stack that you take if you want to turn the brain on. Verbal fluency, mental energy, motivation, the will to get things done. 30% off. Coupon code is 30, livecortex.com. And the Cortex Stack. Better deal is the Cortex Double Stack. It gets you 2 bottles, $24 each. Couldn't make a better deal for you guys. Get it at livecortex.com. Listen, if you're new to nootropics and you want to learn all this, you want that strategy infused in a video course, get Nootropics Ground Zero. We teach you how to do all this in that course. If you're in a couple years, you just want to skip to the masterclass, that's the 6-year mark. I mean, you get a lot more done. You get better results at the 6-year mark. We created a course for that too. It's called the Nootropics Masterclass, and you can find that at livecortex.com. Last thing, listen, if you're a business professional and you need my help on a day-to-day basis and a very results-driven neurohacking, energy hacking consulting program, either the 1 month, the 3.5 month, or the 6 month intensive, these are hands-on, results-driven neurohacking consults where you're working directly with me to achieve mental energy. I mean, most people have like some sort of energy dynamic issues that we've got to fix, but then total brain optimization via nootropics and research chemicals. Such a fun ride. And think about the stuff you can get done, especially if you're a business person. I know you're serious. Get any one of those consults if you're interested. If you're curious about what applies to you, want to talk to me, email me, Ryan@livecortex.com. And again, the 3.5 month and the 6 month apply to PSSD. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.